Okay guys, I officially read a nonfiction book that is not going to fit in my presidential reading challenge. And I was really excited about it, and I was really disappointed, so I want to talk to you about it. So the book that we're talking about today is Susan, Linda, Nina, and Cokie, The Extraordinary Story of the Founding Mothers of NPR. And I absolutely have notes on my phone because just that alone is a really long title. So if you saw my politics and history podcast recommendation video, then you know that I have been massively obsessed with the NPR politics podcast, and it has just been growing from there. I've been going to some of their live tapings over the pandemic, and I've been thinking about taking a trip to DC, and right now the NPR office is still closed, and I'm just like depressed because I'm going to DC, and what I want to see is the NPR flagship station office. So I have become a huge NPR person, and so when I saw this book, which is a new release as of April 13th, 2021, I was really excited. One, because the aforementioned Nina in that title is Nina Totenberg, who shows up on the NPR Politics podcast and is a queen, and I love her. But also, I had no idea that there were women important to the founding of NPR. And so I realized I knew none of this history. It was something I was really interested in, and I couldn't wait to read this book. So this book has issues from go because it is a group biography, and I'm quoting here from the blurbing. A group biography of 4 beloved women who fought sexism, covered decades of American news, and whose voices defined NPR. And the people in question are Cokie Roberts, Susan Stamberg, Linda Wertheimer, and Nina Totenberg. What's really interesting about this is that at the start of the book, Lisa Napoli, who is the author, has an author's note where she says that this book was originally presented to her as a biography on Cokie Roberts, and Lisa Napoli was like, well, I could do that, or I could do this more group biography. And she does it in 288 pages. Are you starting to see where some of these issues are coming in? Because I knew all of these facts on their own when I started, and I didn't put it together until too late that it could maybe be an issue. I want to say straight up that this book is not a bad book. It's about a 3-star book for me. But the thing is that it is trying to do 5 things at once: a 4-women group biography and the founding of NPR. And so, for example, to understand how amazing the lives of these 4 women were and are, you have to understand the culture of women in news. You have to understand the culture of print versus electronic media in the time when NPR is starting. And so you need this historical background, but then you also need to be grounded in the lives of these 4 women, and then it needs to chronicle NPR from its start to forward. Now, based on the subtitle, I assumed that all of these women were rather more there from the start than they actually were, so that's one thing. And this is where this starts to get very tricky. Again, I assumed from the title that these women were a group who worked together on some things. You find out later that, for example, Susan predates a lot of these women, and she's kind of hanging out there for a while before, Linda shows up, and then Nina shows up, and then Cokie shows up. There's also a weird imbalance on whose lives get focused on. Now, you do get a sense of how all these 4 women grew up, what their basic career paths were, but at a certain point, I think I was actually reading it, and I was like, what has Linda been doing this entire time? And it was so imbalanced that I just felt sad. And despite the fact that Lisa Napoli made the conscious choice not to make this a biography specifically on Cokie Roberts, it focuses a lot on Cokie Roberts once she shows up in the end. Again, once she kind of shows up, I feel like the other 3 women kind of fade into the background, and that was super frustrating. Also, The depiction of the founding of NPR left me with a lot more questions than answers. I had no idea, for example, that NPR almost went bankrupt. But I also feel like this book had prepped me for these 4 women to have more of a role in saving it than I feel like maybe they really did. But I'm not sure, because that part of the story takes maybe a chapter when it could be its own book. Trying to do all of this in 288 pages just kind of flabbergasts me. But I also don't know if this is a problem with me or a problem with the book. I have become accustomed to reading 800, 900 page, incredibly detailed biographies of presidents or political figures. Those are the kind of things that I've been into lately. So I will say, take my complaining with a grain of salt. Perhaps this is an incredibly, bare bones, flowing biography that covers all 4 of these women's lives and the founding of NPR in an adequate amount of detail. But since I've not read a nonfiction book this short in quite some time, it just doesn't sit well with me. I do kind of feel legitimate, though, in my complaint that if you're going to do a group biography, you need to give equal weight to all of the people. I understand that out of the 4 of them, Cokie Roberts became an absolute international celebrity by the time she died. And of course, her death is the most recent. And so it might be on people's minds more. And maybe they did pick up this book because they know the name Cokie Roberts more than maybe they know the names of Susan or Linda or Nina. I came to this book for Nina, and I was very sad that, again, she's only introduced about halfway through, and then, she gets a chapter or 2 to herself, and then Cokie shows up, and I'm like, but Nina, because she is one of my personal heroes, and again, still reporting for NPR. So again, I accept that maybe I have some personal biases that make this a little bit difficult. But I'm just saying, if you're trying to do 5 things in a single biography, maybe it needs more than 288 pages. To that flip side, like I said, I absolutely respect that Lisa Napoli is able to say, okay, here is this gargantuan amount of information she clearly had access to, and she's able to distill it into simple and quick chapters. That is an incredible writing talent that not many people have, and is absolutely in this book. For all that it is so short, it is eminently readable, and even though the chapters do switch between these 4 women as they are introduced, you never feel like you are lost. I always know, it helps that at the top of the chapter it says Linda or Susan, but I always felt like the story was moving itself along, and I never was like, oh, what's happening now? It was very, very good and written very well, so I do want to give it props that it deserves. What I need, though, is more books on NPR, because I feel like this book is an appetizer. This book does such a good job explaining why these women are important, why the founding of NPR is an incredible moment in news, in just about everything. But it's a taste, it's tapas, it's an appetizer. It is essentially telling me I need another book, or I need several other books. I don't know necessarily if I'm interested in other biographies on these women, but I'm really interested in more books on NPR. So I have to go and I have to find them, because this book 100% whetted my appetite, but I am not full. I went to a very fancy restaurant and it was wonderful and fantastic, but the portion was too small, and now I need a hamburger or 3. So I will be on the hunt for more books on NPR. If you are looking for a really good, fast, quick introduction to this topic, you can't go wrong with this book, absolutely not. But if you are interested, you will need more afterward. So if you have any suggestions for me, leave them down in the comments. Otherwise, you will 100% see what comes out of my exploration at some point, I am sure. So thank you so much for taking this time to hear about this book, and listen to NPR, support your local NPR station, and have a wonderful day. May it not be raining for a brief moment where you are, because I've only seen rain for a while. Thanks, guys. Bye.